Hey, what's up, guys? It's another night. I'm actually in my shed trying to get some work done on the car. I got some hoses and fittings in from Finish Line Factory today. So I got myself a roll of Dash 16. It's a 25-foot roll. And I figured since I haven't done something like this before, I'm going to show you guys how to make a AN hose. It's relatively simple. You just use basic hand tools. So what we have here, you got the dies for the bench vise. And a pro tip is make sure your bench vise is bolted down to your table. I helped my buddy Kev try to do his, and having this not mounted to something was a very big challenge. I use an aluminum AN wrench, that way you don't scratch the fitting much. You gotta get yourself a cutoff wheel, and then your hose. So here I actually put the fitting on earlier today, just to kind of mock things up. So what I did is I measured where I wanted, and what I'll do is I'm gonna cut in the center of this. You always want to tape it to make sure it doesn't fray when you cut. It makes it, the installation of the fitting a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this, and I'll follow up with you in just a second. So now that you see I actually cut the end of the hose off, it's nice and smooth. And there's no fraying with any of the nylon or the stainless steel insert. So now what you're going to do is take off the end of the fitting. Now this fitting has been used before on my old setup, but being the fact that these fittings are anywhere between $20 and $35 a piece, I'm going to try to reuse some of them. So what you want to do is you want to slide the hose into the fitting, rotating it nice and smooth. And it's going to come to a point where the fitting won't go any farther down. And you can see inside the fitting, there's actually like a groove inside, and it kind of bottoms out there. So now what you're going to do is you're going to set up your bench vise, and you're actually going to put the fitting inside and tighten it down. Just like so. You'll take the actual rest of the fitting, you'll go ahead and slide it in and start to thread it in. One of the things you got to be aware of is where your hose is here, you don't want to have the hose start sliding out when you're tightening down the fitting. A lot of the times the hose will start spinning, which is okay. I mean, it's a lot of friction. So, I mean, I'd rather it spin and be happy than burn up the inside of the hose. So you're going to start threading it in. And as I said before, this is a fitting I am reusing, so you will definitely see some sort of markings on it. The more you do this, the more you will definitely get better at it. And I can promise you, the first couple hoses I made were probably something you don't really want to look at. They're not very aesthetically pleasing, but this build has always been a learning platform for me. So in life, the more you do anything, you're definitely going to get better at it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish tightening this. Now you see here the fitting is as tight as I can get it. I don't want to go any tighter because then it could start stripping the threads. So as you see here, this is actually going to be the hot side radiator hose. So I'm going to go ahead and slide it in the car and show you guys what it's all about. So now starting at the radiator, this is the hose I just made right here. So it's going to go under the control arm, down the frame rail. It's going to go up. I'm going to tie it to the bottom of the car. And you can see go up there. And it's going to go up towards the front of the car. Now right at the front of the car, You can see it go right there. It's gonna go up to the back of this distribution block. Now this is, like I said, the hot side of the radiator. So you actually have the two hoses. There's my finger right there. This is the top part of the block. So they go into this little coolant jig that I had made. This is also the steam port, which goes underneath the intake manifold. It's gonna be very hard to see it here. Under the intake manifold, you have these 4 ports of the head, and they all go into a block under the center of the intake manifold, and that's the bleeder hose essentially. And then this is where my coolant temperature sensor is. And like I said, this hose, it's gonna go all the way. It's gonna be tied up. This is just rough mock-up, but this is gonna be the routing of it. So that is the hot side. Also, there is a T-fitting here. You can see the other end of it here. And that hose is actually gonna go up to the bottom of the gas tank. The bottom of the gas tank has the high point of the cooling system. So I'm actually gonna be filling the entire cooling system from the trunk right next to the gas tank, which will make it a lot easier. Once the water goes through the radiator, the water pump is here. It's actually welded directly to the radiator itself. I had no other room. And then there's gonna be a hose I'm gonna make now or soon that'll run to the other side of the car. It actually has to split. I have a Y block in the toolbox right here. So it's gonna go into the 1-16, into the 2-12, and then that will actually connect to the other 2 ports on the block that I don't have connected yet. So once I do that, I'll have a completed cooling system. One thing you also notice now is, why the heck is there a white fender? Well, through a couple of decisions of my own, I am going back to stock width front end. So as you see the fender flare on top of the toolbox, that fender flare is no longer going to be on the car. But there's 2 things. For drag week, there's a class that I want to run. It's called the Super Street Small Block Power Adder. So, you know, small block Chevy LS, small turbo, which is the power adder. Basically, it's the class that I found in drag week that doesn't have a minimum weight. With my car done, I'm hoping it's going to be about 2,700 pounds. Well, if I run in a different class for drag week, they say I have to have a minimum weight of 3,200 pounds, I believe. Well, being the fact that this is a little Miata, I don't know where I can put another 600 pounds of lead ballast in the car to make the weight. Well, the class that I found, the one requirement that my car did not meet is it still has to have OEM metal fenders. That is by the rules. So this helps me with one thing I've been wanting for a long time. And if any of you guys are on fender flares, you know the struggles of having to actually get proper wheel fitment. In the rear, I'm going to keep the fender flares because, as you see, I run a big meaty 275 drag radial. If I didn't have the fender flares, you would actually probably not believe me how cut up the car is just to fit these tires. But in the front, this helps me with my wheel choice. So with the fender flares, I had to run big wheel spacers, and I actually have a pair of them here that you can see. These are 32 millimeters, and I actually machined them myself on my buddy's mill, but they're 32 millimeters. So what the problem was is you take the wheel, instead of the wheel turning, it actually makes the wheel swing. So what led that before is I had to run a 15x8 wheel, and I ran, I believe, a 195/50/15 tire, which is pretty stretched. And I never liked the look of the car. I wanted the front of the car to be higher, but due to the way the wheel fitment was, I would have a wheel gap in the front that it just didn't look good. And if I lowered it back down, the front of the car hung too low. So this kind of helps me in the future. I'm not going to keep these wheels. These are actually 15x10 6ULs, and these are a 245 tire. I'm going to end up getting another pair of 15x9s and putting it in the front. And most likely I'm going to run a 225/50/15 tire. So that's my plan. This, like I said, I got the box from Finish Line Factory today. Give them a follow. I highly recommend their stuff. They have very good quality fittings. And I plan, you know, I've been using all of their stuff as I've been buying new stuff for the LS. I actually have their the PTFE braided fuel lines, which are actually right here in my hand. And these fuel lines have a nylon inside. That way when you run the ethanol or alcohol fuels, it doesn't sit there and break down the hose on the inside. So definitely give them a definitely give them a look at. I definitely recommend their products. That's what I'm going to be using from now on. But as I stated before, I will be reusing some of my hoses, just because the simple fact that they're a lot of money. One of the things most people don't think about is when you're building a car, you have your fuel lines, you have your catch can lines, you have water lines, you have hoses everywhere, and they add up to be very expensive. So cost is one of those things you definitely got to keep a lookout, otherwise the bill just gets out of hand. So I'm going to start, I'm going to finish up doing the cooling system. I'm going to have to order more hoses. I don't have exactly what I need, but it's just a little insight of the cooling system of what I'm doing. So just want to give you guys a little update, check in with y'all. So hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. I'm still absolutely stuffed. Good times with the family. My friend Miguel came over, we came fishing, so it's been a good couple past days for me. I got more motivation to work on the race car here, so you will be seeing more updates more. My brother-in-law actually just built me a computer, so no more phone editing. Hopefully I can make a better video and do this a little bit more often. You guys can enjoy it and join me the progress and the journey of the turtle build. So as I keep saying, and I know a lot of people do, but 2020 is going to be a really awesome year for the car, myself, and everything going on. And I hope you guys have nothing but forward momentum and more progress in your lives as well. So, hope you guys have a good night. I'll see you soon.